Mainstream archaeologists have long rejected the notion that extraterrestrial beings had a hand in creating the pyramids of Egypt. Theologians and religious scholars refute the idea that stories of the Bible or the Mahabharata could be describing alien encounters. And governments throughout history have officially denied reports that the Earth has been visited by flying saucers. But on July 8, 1947, a UFO sighting was reported that even the United States government had trouble denying. Why? Because this time, the report was issued by the U.S. Army.
I'm walking on the Foster Ranch between Corona and Roswell, New Mexico, not far from what is called the debris field right over that hill. And that debris field refers to headlines back in July of 1947 about a disc, one of those mysterious UFOs, actually crashing right out here.
One night in early July 1947, a major thunderstorm rolled across New Mexico. The next morning, rancher Mac Brazel went out to check on the damage.
Mac Brazel went out to make sure everything was where it was supposed to be, and he came across this really extensive area of debris, stuff he had never seen before. He brought it to the local sheriff's office. In 1947, Roswell was home to Roswell Army Airfield. The sheriff called the base sent Major Jess Marcel, and at that point it basically became a military site as they gathered up every bit of debris they could find.
In their initial report, Army officials made a vague claim of having started the recovery of the debris sometime last week. But why didn't the Army report their findings right away? And why were they so ambiguous about the timeline?
Now, one of the biggest things we have is the newspaper of July 8, 1947, where Colonel Blanchard issued an order to Lieutenant Walter Haut, who was the public information officer, saying basically we have in our possession a flying saucer. It's being taken to Fort Worth to higher headquarters.
Roswell was a real turning point for ufology. I think that was because the military for the first time admitted that they had a crashed disc. And because it was admitted at the time, of course, it caused a sensation.
Then July 9th, General Ramey issued a press release saying, no, it was a weather balloon. And that started the best documented UFO cover-up ever.
Army officials referred to the debris as being part of a flying disc. Internal memos even referenced the crash site as having victims. So why, less than 24 hours later, did they suddenly decide that what they had retrieved was nothing more than a weather balloon? Although Blanchard and Ramey stuck by the revised story, Lieutenant Haut stood by the contents of his initial report his entire life. And those who believe him think modern technology may have recently provided the irrefutable evidence they have been looking for.
When Major Marcel took the debris to Fort Worth and General Ramey spread it out to give his press conference that it was a weather balloon, there was a picture taken, and in his hand is a piece of paper. And it's a very little piece of paper, and this has been blown up, and it is a memo. There's a leading researcher in the field who is pulling the words out of this. And they include things like team at Fort Worth, forwarded victims of the wreck, pod or pan. And so every year that the technology improves, General Ramey may be the one to solve it.
Bob Wood, a researcher in UFOs, had received leaked documents in 1996 and shared them with me and a few others. This document, called the Interplanetary Phenomena Unit, with a War Department stamp dated July 22nd, 1947. The most disturbing aspect of this investigation was that there were other bodies found not far from Landing Zone 1, the Mac Brazel site between Corona and Roswell, that looked as if they had been dissected as you would a frog. It does not define, were those bodies human? Were those bodies non-human? But suddenly, for me, this electric jolt that came into holding that document and reading at the end of the 90s what would explain finally that our government knew that extraterrestrial biological entities from somewhere else in the cosmos was interacting with our planet for a very long time.
5 years after Roswell, the United States Air Force coined the term unidentified flying object, or UFO. In the decades since, thousands of UFOs have been reported, photographed, and videotaped all over the world.
Oh my God. Perhaps one of the biggest, most revolutionary pieces of technology to change our view of UFOs and flying saucers is the video cam.
Whoa, I'm getting a series of lights right there. I got it.
You only have to look at what happened in Phoenix, Arizona in March of 1997 when these huge flying boomerangs went right across Phoenix, right through the whole valley, heading south to the Mexico border. These were all caught on cameras. Network news caught these. Local news caught these. You saw these on CNN. You saw these on Larry King.
Oh, there it is, over the left.
And yes, people called them flares. Of course they did. But the fact is, when you see something with your own eyes...
Look, dude, Pat, you got it? I see it.
Even if it's on a video camera, suddenly your perspective changes.
And that middle one is moving quick. It's only the beginning, you guys.
So now, according to recent polls, Gallup polls and Roper polls, well over 50% of Americans believe that flying saucers exist, and close to 50% believe that the government knows that flying saucers exist, and that the government is hiding that fact.